Welcome to the Bigger Truth Podcast. I am Scott McMahon and excited to be here. We've got, it's been a while since I've done a live, so just grabbing my bearings. All right, I'm here. Thank you for joining. We are going to be talking today, going to kind of give an update on just things in general, and Kelly Sackett will be joining us, and I believe. So we talked earlier this week, so I believe she's going to be here. She's just not here yet, so she's running late. And until she gets in, I'm going to go ahead and share this. This was an email, and if you're in Michigan, it's likely that you got this because this went out to all of the delegates. But this was just last week. It was June 21st, and I kind of want to go through it because it's wild. So Christina Karamo, the fight continues, and she opens, if we don't demand righteousness in our party, how can we as Republicans advance righteous governance in our state and nation? So this is where they're going. And, it sounds good. I think truly, we all want righteousness. But the belief that righteousness is something that can be attained within the party, or even in governance, true like righteousness. I think that's a pretty flawed thing. It's not that, usually in politics, and it's a utopian ideal, really. In politics, most of our choices are between bad and less bad. And it's just an unfortunate reality because we live in a flawed world, with lots of flawed candidates, and where every single one of us is flawed. But hang on just a minute. All right. So she's about to join us. I apologize. The Randy Guppy says KK continues the grift, and that's really what this is. I mean, what they use, she does this often. This where she creates an impossible standard, and it's not just Karamo. It's the same thing. We've seen this all across the country, where they create an impossible standard, and then they hold their, and this is a Saul Alinsky tactic too. They hold their opponents to that standard, but not themselves. I mean, look to themselves. Is there any righteousness at all was there any righteousness within the Christina Karamo organization? So righteousness gets things done. Righteousness looks like keeping good records. Righteousness looks like, hiring people that aren't criminals. Righteousness looks like hiring people who have not stolen allegedly in the, well over $1 million in the case of Jim Copas, who was charged with he had a RICO case where his previous employer alleged that he stole $1 million, or Robert Owens, who actually was convicted of stealing over $100,000 from his legal employment clients, and all that. I mean, there really was, and had hired a dozen prostitutes over a 12-month period. There was no righteousness in the Christina Karamo organization. Righteousness does not look like kicking out anyone who questions you. That's not righteousness. So, it's just, the whole thing is absurd, starting with the very first sentence. And Kelly just joined. Hey, Kelly.
Hello.
How you doing? I apologize for this communication. I own it. I thought I had responded to you and said, yes, 2:00 is perfect.
That's all right.
So
no worries.
But I'm glad you're here. So I was just opening up. We just started talking about this email from Christina Karamo. The fight continues, talking about righteousness, and she's saying, we need to demand righteousness in our party, and yet. As she ran the party, there was absolutely no righteousness. I mean, the righteousness the party should first be marked by is effectiveness, and the purpose of the party is not some sort of to exhibit perfect moral righteousness as much as is to the party. It's like the purpose of a business is to be profitable. The purpose of the party is to be to get Republicans elected. and they were working actually in opposition to that. So,
you cannot do that without money. I mean, and for Dan Hartman to say that it was not up to Christina Karamo to fundraise, that's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. And so who's fundraising at that point? Where's the money coming from? And, even if their job is to get people elected, that still takes money. No matter what, it takes money. And so I'm just amazed.
Yep.
I'm amazed at their thought process. That actually they believe it. That's I think what I'm most amazed about, that they actually believe it.
Yeah.
So
it is, that somebody could open this email and say, oh yeah, we need to go back to righteousness. We had righteousness when Christina Karamo was the chair. That's just unbelievable. I mean, just look at Robert Owens. Look at every single one of them. Look at Dan Bonamy. Just it's look at what Neil Frisky just allegedly.
Allegedly, that's and the big difference is that you and I both know when we say something allegedly, and look at Robert Owen, who puts out a bunch of garbage yesterday about one of the county chairs, and it's all blatant lies, and they speak it like it's the truth. And anybody that cares about our party and cares about getting people elected would not put something out like that is just absolute blatant lies. And I think that that's the biggest problem that most people have today, is that nobody's calling any of that out. And what does that look like? How do we go about doing that? Because it probably shouldn't be the party doing it. Because then the party's just like, going around in a circle, right? So is it those of us, the rest of the grassroots activists, that have to do it? What's the right answer with that? But the blatant lies against others, people that are doing the work, need to stop. And the stuff that was said about Vance yesterday, that's libel and slander. That is a suable offense. And just
what did they say?
Said that money laundering, Oakland's money laundering, and Vance worked with Yob for the when Trump came last year, worked with Yob for that event, and the only reason that it was a success was because of Yob. And just again, that Vance is money laundering.
Right.
It's the most absurd thing that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And somebody who's working their butt off for the party and for Trump nonstop said that Vance was traveling on the dime of the donors when he went down to Mar-a-Lago. You know this. There is no free ride in this. I mean, as a county chair, I don't use the credit card for anything. I don't use it for anything. I don't. If I go to lunch with another county chairperson, even somebody within my organization, we each pay. Mm-hmm. So the notion of us just taking money from our donors and misusing it is just absurd. Yeah. And I've been accused of money laundering in Kalamazoo County,
right,
with all of the less than $20,000 that we have in the bank account.
Yep.
Crazy.
The false accusations, ridiculous claims. Randy says he also made ridiculous claims about the Oakland GOP. It was at the New Year's Eve event.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, this is what they do. And you know, I was accused just the other day of being bought by the cartels in Arizona.
Well, it's funny that you bring up cartel because that was another claim, even here in Kalamazoo, that we are being paid off by the cartel.
Wow.
And I don't know who that is, who the cartel is, but I know Randy said this before too. Like, I still haven't got my check. We all feel it.
Right. So so let's get into, because there's one of the things that they are, even in this email here, that Christina is talking about. You know, she's talking about your cases, and she talks about the opinion. Was this last week or the week before the dismissal from Judge
Yeah,
Bell?
a couple
Um,
weeks ago.
yeah. So can you, because what they're saying, what their argument is, as I've seen it, is that this is the same premise, that this case was the same premise as Judge Rossi's case. It was the same issue, but a different ruling. And so this signals that everything's going to be, reversed, and the savior, Christina Karamo, is going to restore righteousness to the party as the chair. So
So even before this ruling was out, so this was out like 2 Fridays ago, essentially when we saw you in Genesee County, when we were traveling there, that's when Matt got the email that the ruling was out. So we hadn't even really had a chance at that point to digest it. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit, because they filed a federal lawsuit against myself and also the Kalamazoo GOP, and within that federal lawsuit, they were almost trying to negate Judge Rossi's ruling with that as well. And it was really strange to us that they were suing us in federal court before we even had the decision from Judge Bell. And so I don't know. They're just throwing everything at it that they possibly can, right? But yes, they believe that the decision in Kalamazoo essentially reverses what Judge Rossi's decision was, because how can one judge rule one way and a judge rule a different way? Well, I can tell you, Judge Bell is very much the liberal activist type of judge, and he can say it all he likes, but I mean, this is essentially being done to hurt our party here locally. He knows that we're all candidates. I mean, look at Matt's a candidate for the Michigan Supreme Court. I'm a candidate for the Michigan House. Um, he knows what this does to us. He knows that this just it ties us up in court. It makes us have all of this busy work so that we can't get down to actually winning elections. That's the part that really sucks. And really, what Judge Bell's ruling said was that he didn't have jurisdiction. There's a difference between ruling against somebody and basically saying, I'm not taking up this case because I don't have jurisdiction. And I know that Hartman loves to, throw in Hype Manis, but really, this is not a case. To us in Kalamazoo County, we feel that this case is about they're impersonating us. I mean, this is like identity theft. So they're running around the county saying that they're the Kalamazoo County GOP when they're not. And it's identity theft. This has hurt us from fundraising. It's confused our members. Still confuses obviously people in the community. And so how can if somebody ran around and tried to be me or even my husband's business, the cops would intervene. But because this is a political matter, there's nobody to resolve it for us. I mean, I've went to the police. I've the police have said actually the Secretary of State has to step in and intervene. Well, I hold the statement of organization. So everything is based on a county has one county party. I mean, that's how it is across the state of Michigan. So we have one county party, 83 county parties plus Wayne. And you can't just become a county party because you want to be. So, the Kalamazoo County Republican Committee, is held by myself and our treasurer. It has been held by us the whole entire time. They have literally went to the Bureau of Elections 3 times to try to take it from us. 3 times. And the Bureau hasn't awarded it. So it's insane. And as soon as they get the statement of organization, you know what that means. Then they get our bank account. They get our any debt that we have, any our lease on our building, all of it. That but you take over everything. But I mean mostly I guess the bank account in our office.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
it's pretty clear this isn't. It's an effort to damage the party. I mean, that's really what.
exactly. Well, 100%. And
Especially you look
again,
right now. I mean, we're just months now from such a major election, and these people who claim to be Republicans, instead of having an attitude, okay, let's come together, let's win. How can we help? How can even going to the state party saying, okay, how can we help, or coming to you? I mean, I would imagine that even with the history that you have, I mean, you're a professional. Even with the history that you have with them, if they came to you and said, how can we help? That you'd welcome them. Like, of course, yeah, you can knock on doors. If you're sincere, let's do it. And that's because that's what the party's about. And but that's not what they want to do. They just want to take, they want to destroy, they want
they
to.
want to take and they want to destroy. They want to demean, defame people. They actually, and I think I talked about this before, they want to destroy people's lives. That's the really sad part. This for them is just about destroying lives. They don't care. They don't care. And very easily, yes, most people in Kalamazoo County would be welcome back into the party. There are a few that can't come back. I mean, when you've filed lawsuits against people, that kind of puts an X over your name.
Sure.
But uh, kind of what Trump is doing. We're big tent, right? We should be big tent. That's how we win elections, is
Right.
with welcoming people back. And some of why that gets us in trouble is because we welcome people as a party, as a whole. And maybe we don't vet people as well as we should be. So,
Right.
yep,
Yeah,
Randy's right. They only care about controlling the party.
that's right. Yep. And
And
you can't even get them to knock doors for Trump. And that's not just in Nuevo and in your side there, Randy. It's not just in Michigan. It's really nationwide. These people, I talked to somebody with the RNC yesterday in Arizona, and he said that there just aren't people just aren't wanting to come and help. And a lot of the good guys have been so discouraged that the people that have helped in the past, they just don't want to have anything to do with the party anymore because they've been attacked. So it's crazy, the attacks that happen. And it's not just slander. It's
it is personal attacks. I believe some people have had their businesses attacked. It is across the board. There's nothing off limits. Again, if you're doing in their mind what they feel is the righteous work, and the win at all cost mentality, you can do anything that you need to do to destroy somebody who you perceive to be evil. And I was deemed evil a while ago, and I don't think you ever come back from that in their eyes. Once they say you're evil, then you're done. And so, how many of us is that now?
right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
the majority of state committee, the majority of county parties, we're evil.
Right. Right. And that goes back to that opening message from Christina Karamo that we need to restore righteousness. And these people actually believe that they are God themselves and that they get to determine, and that that God is on their side and not on anybody else's, and that we're all demonic and
Right.
evil.
Evil.
This is the nationwide psyop that I've described, that I think it comes out of the Reawaken tour. And it's not Christianity. this is not, it's they call themselves Christian nationalists, but I think that as Christians and as Republicans, we need to say this is not us. If we're Christians, this is not Christianity. And as Republicans, these people are not Republicans. They're anti-Republicans. They are trying to destroy the Republican Party. And
Absolutely agree. I mean, just with what we saw come out of Arizona, and the lengths that they were going to there, to try to, have, the rules set aside, and just all of that. Nobody does that with a good heart or good intentions. I'm sorry to tell you. And for me personally, on February 17th of last year, that's actually how they did what they did to my county party, was by setting the rules aside. So I don't have to tell you how cringy that was for me to hear that. And because I know how good and convincing people can be to get what they want in that scenario, and how scary that was for me hearing that. Extremely scary. So I think everybody across this country, should. I personally hope it was a wake up call. That's all I could say. It was a wake up call, because they were pretty close to getting what they were trying to do. They really were. And I think you and I will see in real time what they're actually able to do there. Has this stifled everything with these people? Um, my thought process is it hasn't. That they're going to maybe try something else.
yeah, I'm sure they will. I mean, they're talking about a one day, one vote resolution from the floor, and stupid stuff. And that's not what the convention's. I mean, none of these people have ever been to a convention. They're not really even Republicans. They've never been involved in the party until just a couple years ago, and that doesn't mean that everybody that's new to the party is on the wrong side, because there's many good people that have come into the party in the last couple of years. But when people come in and they think that they own the place, it doesn't matter what organization. That's just a recipe for disaster. um, and my patriot says having this exact conversation with a Republican in Kent County today. So tell us more about, so this lawsuit that was dismissed was, you are suing these others that are basically impersonating the party, right?
Correct.
So that,
Correct.
so are you going to be appealing that, or is it just letting it go and just moving on, or is that
The
something?
appeal was, filed yesterday.
Nice. Okay, good. Um,
Yeah, the appeal was filed. So, we have to continue to fight. I think that anybody who, is in this like we are, even in any of the other states, would understand. We can't stop at this. We've come too far, and this is the only way that we continue to protect ourselves. I mean, that's how bad these people want to take us over, and we're not going to stop. And so obviously we're extremely lucky to have the attorney that we have, who's so knowledgeable of the process and of the party, the insides, and everything within the party. And so yes, we are fighting. Hopefully, this gets taken up soon. You know, I know that the other Dan Hartman filed an appeal yesterday, on the Christina Karamo stuff, or maybe on Sunday. So that's out there as well.
is that
And
Rossi ruling?
that is Rossi's ruling.
Okay.
Yes.
they're, they're appealing that. Oh, it, it is just so, they're just making it so obvious that they are not on the side of Trump, and they're not on the side of Republicans. I mean, this is only, it in every way it hurts. There is no way that this benefits anyone at all. It doesn't even benefit them, because they're going to
Doesn't
lose.
benefit them.
The only way that they could even conjure any benefit is by, if they think that they can gain more cult followers, that they can own, and that's what they do. Right? This is not. Um,
I don't even know that they care. I mean, aside from the power grab, if chaos is what you're after, then chaos is in their mind what they're getting. You know, little do they know that the state party is functioning better than it has in years, right? Making inroads with donors that they haven't gotten, been able to get with in years. Um, HRCC is doing a great job, and so look at all of the Trump 47, the Trump Force 47 that's across our whole state, and so state party appears to be functioning very, very well. And in order how they turn that around so very quickly is pretty amazing, if you think about it from where we were. And I know that a lot of states are envious of where we're at because they're still kind of under the thumb, right, of these people. And we broke out and have been, very successful. And so a lot of people aren't actively involved in their games. I guess that's what you'd call them. And it kind of pains me to be involved in lawsuits right now with these people as well when we have elections to win. I just don't have any other choice. I mean, they brought it to me first, and so I have to fight it. And at times it feels like I'm fighting for the whole state, right? Against these people. And it's it is what we have to do. That's the sad reality. So yes, I mean, I don't know what the process will be with the appeal, how long that will take. I believe we've asked for expedited service with it. I still don't know. I don't really know much about the appellate court. I've never really been there. Um, all of this is kind of new. The only time I'd been in court before was over the mask lawsuits. And one of our cases did make it to the appeals court. And actually, one of them is with the Michigan Supreme Court right now, still. So before I was involved in politics, I'd never really set foot in the courtroom. And so it's kind of interesting to come to where I am now and feel like, wow, I'm an old pro at all of this stuff, all of the legalese. You learn fast, that's for sure.
How is it being paid for?
So we obviously will take donations. We've been paying for a lot of it ourselves. I mean, we're very lucky because Matt isn't requesting the to have the bulk of it paid for. So we're paying him monthly, almost like a retainer fee per se. But we what are hoping to get sanctions as well. I mean, when people bring frivolous lawsuits to your door, then you should be awarded money for that when you have to defend yourself against something that you should never have to defend yourself against. So the Hartman federal case is so ridiculous and so poorly written. Um, any attorney that reads anything that he's filed against us or even the state party, they just shake their head because is this deliberate that he's so bad?
But it's and it really does fit in with the pattern. It's really fascinating. In Arizona, there's this guy, their only attorney that will take their cases, and he represents all of Kerry Lake's lawsuits, is Brian Blem, and he appears to live out of the back of his pickup truck.
Wow.
And he's he does all these videos where he's camping out in the desert. and he just, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's the same exact thing where they're so poorly written, it looks like they were designed to lose. And it's just it's wild. So yeah, I think that you and Matt DePerno are just, you're really, you're heroes for taking this on and taking on this fight. And you're really models for the whole country, because you cannot coexist with people who are anti-Republicans who want to destroy you. You just can't. It's like, like what we've done with the opening the borders to who knows how many terrorists that want to destroy this country. It's just, you can't. It's not sustainable. You can't do it. And with the party, especially with a big election year like this, you just can't, you can't have these people in the party that are trying to undermine your efforts and trying to actually help the Democrats, and whether they know that that's what they're doing or not. And most of their followers, they think like they read messages like what Christina Karamo put out and say, "Oh yeah, this is going to save the country. We're going to make the country righteous again." Like, come on. It, nothing about it makes sense. It's not just that it doesn't make sense. It's completely counterproductive.
Well, anybody who's been in politics and been involved over the years understands that no way, shape, or form would somebody politically say we need to make things righteous again. Like, that's not even any type of political speak. That's just not something that we would say. That's not what you go about aiming to do within a political party. I think we talked about this the last time, that the reality is, as a political party, we are the Bible isn't, I mean, the Constitution is what we live by, as a political party goes. I understand their argument that when the Constitution was written and how many times that it says God, but at the end of the day, we can't intermix the two, because if we intermix the two, we will get very far off of the path that we should be going down. And I don't disagree that anybody thinks that our country's in a bad place and that we need more religion, more God, but it cannot take over our political party. It just cannot. End
Yep.
of story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, not only that, but it's just so destructive. I mean, Islam is a political ideology. That's what it is. The Islamic law is actually a political law, and that's part of the reason why it's so destructive. And because the only way to really implement that is by force. And it's the same exact thing if we go back to Christina's her message here, is that if we don't demand righteousness in our, how can we lead a nation? And that premise, it's so deeply flawed. So they want to demand righteousness, but first they're the ones that determine what righteousness is. And
Correct.
this is tyranny. What she is saying, the whole premise of everything that she's doing is tyrannical. So yeah, it is a,
Well, righteous governance that is not an absolute thing. So what does that mean? Because righteous governance to you might not mean the same thing as it does to me. So this leaves so much up to interpretation. And this is where we get people that think that it's okay to go into county clerk's offices and township clerk's offices and try to take them over. And so again, when there are no parameters set for what exactly that means, that's where we get into the weeds and we get into legal problems. And I'm not okay with that, quite honestly. I don't think that that's okay. And that's where we get the Gideon 300 and the doctrine of the lesser magistrate, and can't even remember the other one. I mean, how many more of these things are going to come about?
right. Well,
Because every time we turn around, there's a new one. So is it a grift, or is it a legitimate organization that these people believe to be the righteous type of governance? But that's not the government. So who is that dictates that?
well, it's their collective, and and collectivism is Marxism, and this is a collectivist Marxist movement, and it's really unfortunate. It's so tragic and sad that people who conscientiously they hate Marxism, and yet they're being indoctrinated into it because the language that's being used to indoctrinate them is like biblical language, and they even use scripture as a weapon in order to reinforce it. So Michigan Patriot says theocracies are evil and they always fail. And yes, and that's that's the point of optimism, is that they failed here. They failed bad, and they're continuing to fail, and that's why they're going to these desperate measures to continue to try to fight and destroy. And the title of the thing is "The Fight Continues." Like, it's just, they're just going to keep fighting, and they're going to keep trying to recruit people, and they won't stop. They're not going to stop. They're not just going to say, okay, we realize that we were wrong, sorry. Christina Karamo's not going to do that, and the people around her are not going to do that. They're just going to keep digging in deeper.
Well, and within this fight is the destruction, and whether they believe it to be intentional or not, we know it to be. How hard, how devastating it is for our party, and how devastating it is, again, like for us in Kalamazoo, with fundraising, with getting new members. We've been pretty lucky in that respect, and we've been pretty lucky that we recruited a lot of new delegates, but it shouldn't be this hard. It really should not. It shouldn't be a constant battle of, oh, which part of the party are you? I mean, these people are actively calling every single one of the new delegates that we recruited, and leaving them messages about, well, the party's pretty split. What part of the party are you a part of? And are you going to trainings, and are you doing this? And, we don't need to train our delegates. You know why you need to train delegates? Because when you're training them to be your own little personal army, that's when you need to train delegates.
What they call training is really indoctrination session.
Yes, it is. And 100%. So yeah, these people are actively calling our delegates on a weekly basis, mm-hmm. and inviting them to their meetings, trying to get them involved, and they have now realized that the only way for them to take back the party is through the delegate structure.
Right.
And they looked at the numbers, and they saw that parties across the state had out-recruited them. So now they're, actively trying to recruit more.
Right.
It's not ending. And it was said last night, they're using a lot of their meetings right now as a means to recruit people for write-in candidates, for delegates. And so they're not going to stop. I think that's the only frustrating part for most of us, is how do we counteract that? How do we counteract these people not stopping? Because like I said, messaging. Does it make sense for the state party to step in at this point? Or do we step in and do we say, you're not the party, and start to point out all of the things that they've done that we haven't done a very good job. They do a good job of getting their ridiculous message out there through Robert Owens and the various means that they use. And we don't counteract that. You know what? We're conservatives. We don't get into that game that they do. But how do we counteract it? What's the right answer?
Well,
I don't know.
You've really provided a lot of that, though, and that's the reason why I really enjoy talking with you and bringing you on, is because you have drawn the line in the sand. You've just flat out declared, okay, you're not Republicans.
Right.
If this is what you're going to do, you're not Republicans. We're not going to coexist with you. We're not going to tolerate you destroying our party, and so we're going to remove you. And you recognized this over a year ago, and you took legal action in order to make that happen, and you defended yourself, and you didn't back down, and you kept going. And this is so Don says we need to win in 24 period. Yes, let those who fight on their own and not draw in a whole political party. And that's really true. But the thing about these people is that they're like, you can't just accept them. And a prime example of that is in Arizona right now. This was just today, just over the last 2 days. I don't know if you have seen here in Michigan, but Shelby Bush went viral after everything else that's happened with their planning to disrupt the national convention. She went a video came out of her talking about how important it is to elect Christians, and then in the same breath,
Attack the Jewish guy.
yeah, that she wants to lynch Stephen Richer, who's Jewish, and so this is the official. Gina Swoboda is the state chair. This is her official response to this. Like with all these emojis saying the bottom line, we need to love one another. And it doesn't, this is the reason why the state party is such a mess, because she thinks that they can just everybody can just, can't we all just get along? No, you can't. You can't get along with people that want to destroy you. You can't tolerate that. You can't just coexist with them. And that attitude that Gina Swoboda has there has really destroyed the state party. And I don't think that she's one of them, but she has enabled them, and deliberately, just trying to befriend them, trying to get on their good side, and they just steamroll. And that's what they do. And that's what they did here too. And, so many people I've talked to that their intentions were so good. And they said, Christina Karamo, she just needs support. She just doesn't have that experience. So, she just needs us to come alongside her and help her. And that's crap, because she kicked out everybody that was capable. Everybody that tried to do that, they were either boxed out or kicked out, or they quit. And because it was an intolerable situation. It was not a situation where they actually wanted to get anything done.
I saw something that Joel Studebaker said the other day about all the donors left and all the people with experience left. And no, they didn't leave. They weren't wanted. They were, as you said, they were kicked out. And there was a line that was drawn in the sand, and either you believe in what we believe or we want you out. And they pushed and they pushed and they pushed. And I can remember when we were having our county conventions in November of 22, and watching on Telegram and people saying, America First took the party over, and it was one after another after another. And people thought that this was a good thing, right? And I sat back shaking my head. Now, we were in a weird situation. Our county convention was canceled because of bad weather. And when it was canceled, we got to reschedule, and you had to do it within like a couple week window, 2 or 3 weeks. And so in sitting back in those few weeks, I was able to see what happened in every other county, and the counties around us, and the counties that didn't get taken over, and what did they do. And so I was accused of studying up and trying to figure out how to combat this. It was true. That's what we did. We literally looked at the counties that were able to not be taken over. And again, many on this call would agree. They remembered thinking it was a good thing. Oh, America First took over. It was not good.
Right.
There was no good intention. This was all done for the simple fact of getting Christina Karamo elected as chair. And they knew that they had to run cover for her because she would be so awful. So they had to run cover. That's why we had our, the district caucus taken over, the rules set aside to where we couldn't vote on our own people within our county, that the whole district got to decide. Again, they did that so that they could run cover on her within the state committee.
Right.
And the reality is not enough counties did that, and so we still had a good chunk of people on the state committee, thank God. But if they were able to do that, we were close. I mean, that it was so very close. And it was all by design, everything. The taking over. I'll never forget when I saw a Telegram post that said, we take over the county, we take over the district, we take over the state. And I thought, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to us. And then it happened, right? It happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived it for a few months, and until people started to see. Didn't take long, but it did take enough time to bring enough people over onto our side to where we could fight it. First state committee meeting, she had 75% support or more. By June, that had wavered. We were probably at 50%. Maybe she had 55%. And then it just went from there.
By September, it really cratered. And
Correct.
I think when Warren Carpenter and Mark Fortin said, "Nope, we've flipped. This is not." That's when that was the beginning of the end right there for real.
Correct. Absolutely.
And Dawn says, "I'm an untrainable delegate who has always freely voted at convention. All the training is unnecessary to me." And
that's good.
Training in scare quotes, and that's exactly what we need in delegates. Is we are the party. The Republican Party is the party of individualism, and
that's why we fight.
Right. And all of the voices that say we need to unite and be,
Correct.
That is collectivism. And so we need to recognize individualism versus collectivism. We need everyone to think for themselves, to examine their evidence, to be statesmen. And I've been saying that all along. The solution is for all of us
right here. The solution starts from within.
Yeah, everybody always says, every time I speak publicly, they say, who can we trust? I say, only yourself. You can really only trust your own discernment. Don't look to anybody else to tell you what to think or what to believe, or especially be wary when they start emotionally manipulating you.
Absolutely. That is the biggest thing right away. When that starts, you got to run the other direction. Right. And that I noticed it right away, but not, again, back to what Dawn just said. She's been in politics for a little bit of time. New people are easier to manipulate. New people who, coming off of the election that we had in 22, just wanted some hope. They just wanted to know that somebody was on their side, and that's what they got with this movement. Prop 2 and 3 destroyed a lot of people and their confidence in our election system, in our party, and they utilized that, and they took advantage of that, and they used it to the best of their ability to manipulate people.
That's right. Yeah. George says we have state representatives who still think that the MIGOP is wrong with Pete in charge, and and that's in my view, that's we are still in primary season, and those people need to be exposed, and because it's clear that at least on that issue, they're not thinking clearly, they're not examining the evidence, they're not you can't look at the party now under Pete Hoekstra versus the party 8 months ago and say, okay, that we were better off back then. I mean, there is metric by which the party was better off under Christina Karamo. And so if there's an elected official who thinks that we were better off then, they clearly are not thinking and seeing clearly, rationally, and logically. And that is good cause for looking into their opponents to find out if they might be better suited for the job. And now in primary season is really the time to do that. So
absolutely agree. Anybody that's still standing beside her who was an elected official and the county isn't with her, well, then you need to take a serious look at that person.
Right.
100%. And, there were only a few of them that were still standing pretty proudly with her at the end. And I think most of us know exactly who they are, and they should be called out.
Right. Yeah. And so they are in that spirit. It's Steve Cara, Neil Frisky, Josh Shriver. Who am I leaving out? I see Steve Cara. I know there's one more that I'm.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone. I mean, Steve Cara and Neil Frisky were the two
Right.
that were so strongly supporting her, that spoke out at even the last state committee meeting in favor of her. And so,
Right. Yeah, that's really problematic.
yeah,
Yeah, and George says we got the two big ones. So, but
agree.
yeah, and the with on Neil Frisky, it's just so strange that that his chief of staff is Dakota Sawyer, who was he's not even from Michigan, he's from Ohio, and he was really close um, with Robert Owens, and
Yep.
and that he has his PAC is an Ohio PAC, and Robert Owens's PAC is an Ohio PAC, and so they're soliciting donations here in Michigan that end up going to Ohio.
And they use WinRed and they make it look like they are legitimately giving money to the party. And it is going to the PAC
Right.
and that American Union PAC, right?
That's right.
Yeah, all of that is very problematic. I mean, where do these people come from? What gives Robert Owens the right to come into our state and call himself the Michigan Republican policy or Republic policy? How does he think that he can do that? And what gives him the credibility to actually claim to be anything? I mean, he is a disbarred attorney from the state of Ohio. Um, let's talk about why he was disbarred. I mean, he stole money from clients, went through a terrible divorce. And, now he basically says, oh, he's a changed man. And so I find that all of that very hard to believe. Very, very hard to believe.
And especially because Christina Karamo was traveling around the state with Robert Owens, staying at other people's houses in the same house together. I'm not insinuating that there was any sort of romantic connection there, but that they were spending a lot of time one on one together, traveling around the state, as in the weeks and months leading up to his conviction. So because he was convicted in September of last year, so
Right.
it's not like anything's changed, and it's clear by his behavior that he's with all the false accusations, the slander, the character assassination, the getting out ahead of the story, all of those things are alleged in the affidavit that his ex-wife signed that said that he had
Correct.
married a dozen prostitutes in the previous year. And it's just this is
And
already,
well, these are the people that want to preach about righteousness to us.
exactly
And same with one of the other ones with the alleged charges. I mean, it's just the actions don't the words and the actions don't match up.
right.
And I find it really hard to believe people like that trying to call us on the carpet for things that have been done with the type of lifestyle that they've been living. And these are the type of people that Christina Karamo, had in her inner circle. And I have a real problem with that.
Yeah, and it all goes back to you said how what gives Robert Owens the right to do that, and ultimately it's the people that pay attention to him. And and that's who they recruit, that's who they're targeting, is low information people that they can manipulate. And it is often, really sadly and horrifically, it's Michigan Patriot says these Christian fundamentalists are almost as bad as the Islamic fundamentalists, but I don't see them as Christian fundamentalists. I think that what they're talking about, Christian nationalism, it is, you earlier said it's a theocracy. It's not Christian, and they claim Christianity, but they're not Christians, and by their behavior, because by our fruits we will be known, and their fruits clearly show that they use the Bible as a weapon to incite hatred. So I mean, that's not Christianity. So,
It's
uh,
not.
so the um, what as far as what can we expect going forward as far as these lawsuits? So there's an appeal. We basically got three different fronts going on here. What you said. So Hartman has filed an appeal on Rossi's decision. which is just, absurd. That's probably my guess. There is the judge is likely to delay that. The court's likely to just put that off until, if they put it off for 6 months, then it's completely moot and they don't have to decide. So,
Right.
and I'm sure there'll be actions taken by the state to cause delays and stuff with that too.
Yes, and I believe that there probably is something that's been filed on that or will be to not expedite that, which makes complete sense considering, again, that we're in an election year and
Right.
so close to, the most important election of our time. And so, yes, so Hartman has filed the appeal on the Rossi decision. We filed an appeal on Judge Bell's decision. And then I'm not exactly sure where the federal case is at against myself and the party. I can tell you that that was only, I was only served last week Tuesday. Let me just double check the date on that. And I was served the minute that I walked into the courtroom on the 18th. They served me in the courtroom
Oh
for the
wow.
yeah. So Matt was pretty upset, thinking that that wasn't even legal, and it does turn out that that is legal. I would say it's not very ethical to serve somebody a lawsuit while they're in court for something else, and they videotaped it. You can't videotape in the courtroom. If we actually would have spoken what happened out loud, I'm pretty sure that Judge Bell would have had a major issue with that taking place in his courtroom before he, stepped out on the bench. And let me talk for a second about that. So, and I don't even know if I told you this. So, when they were trying to serve me the federal case, so if they served me on the 18th of June, essentially the week before that, so on the 12th, they they had a person walk into the Kalamazoo GOP and serve one of our volunteers, which is not okay, because you can't serve somebody who is um, not an officer of the party. So they served a volunteer, and at the time, I was at home, literally getting ready to head to McComb's Lincoln dinner. And I pulled out of my driveway and I saw somebody. When I was pulling out, there was somebody sitting in front of my house. I had no idea who it was. The person proceeded to followed me on the highway. Um, I, at one point, got off of the highway just to see if they were following me and got immediately back on. Of course, they followed. So this went on for 30 minutes following me. And at one point, I was in the left hand lane. Traffic had slowed down. There was a broken down semi on the right hand side of the road. They almost rear ended me. And at this point, I called my attorney who said, call the police right now. Well, then they got off the highway. I didn't see him again. So I didn't call the police. So the next day, actually, was it the next day? It was I don't remember if it was the next day or the day after that. They served my husband. So this individual was waiting in the main area of my husband's office building before his office and served him. And I said to him, is this what the person looked like? And he said, yes. And both people that were served by him said the man was incredibly creepy and scary. At this point, my attorney pulled up the man. Now we had his name. He was on the sex offender registry.
Oh my gosh.
So when he was sitting in front of my house, I have a minor child. When he served my volunteer in my office building, there are two businesses that totally serve children. One's in autistic resources, and I don't even think this individual can be within 100 feet or more of any child. And so, comes to find out, this person was Dan Hartman's client multiple times. So Dan Hartman knew him. Not only that, I believe Dan Hartman had sold him a car or two. So they were personal friends. Dan Hartman knew that this person was on the sex offender registry and sent him to intimidate me. Think about that. The guy's waiting in front of my house. Again, I have a minor child. This is coercion. This is intimidation of a witness. And so I then in turn sent a text message to two or three of the people that are involved in this lawsuit. And I explained to them, if you have, I had to call the police and file a claim about this guy. The police told me that if I see him again, to immediately call 911. And so I sent a text message to these people saying, do you understand what Dan Hartman sent to my doorstep in this guy who's on the sex offender registry? Like, what kind of people are you? You are absolutely disgusting, appalling people. Dan Hartman is probably one of the most awful people that I've ever encountered in my life.
Wow.
Wow. That's right.
It's an unbelievable story.
I couldn't make this up if I tried, right?
I'm just going to read this first sentence again. If we don't demand righteousness in our party, how can we as Republicans advance righteous governance in our state and nation?
Right.
Absurd. This is who these people are. And yeah, it's not just hypocrisy. It's so hard for us to comprehend. Like,
right. No words, right? You have no words. I did not tell you this before before I just said it, right?
You told me a piece of it.
A piece, but not the whole thing.
Yeah. Wow. You told me about the car chase part, but I didn't realize the sex offender, the whole, it's just unbelievable.
Right. So what does that tell you? These are the people that are demanding righteousness from us. And what do they exemplify? What kind of people are these? I mean, I almost have no words except for that I'm so disgusted. If it didn't actually happen to me, I would just sit there with my mouth open, like, what the heck kind of world are we living in? And so if we demand more from our politicians and from our local party officials and things like that, this is not demanding more. This is the bottom of the barrel. And to think that this type of behavior is okay, I haven't been apologized to. Nobody's reached out to me to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. This is awful. Fearing that this guy is like lurking somewhere around my house. Let's be realistic. When people serve you lawsuits, it's like they're stalking you, right? If I would have easily taken the lawsuit from the guy, he didn't have to chase me down the highway for 30 miles. My husband was extremely thankful that he served him, found him in his office. Again, another person who is not a party of the lawsuit.
Right.
So, and then they actually serve me in court when I'm in court for something with Sabrina and Kim. So
that's just, there's nothing really. I mean, you can't. I can't point to anything that I've seen from any of them that I could say, okay, yeah, that's an example of righteousness or good governance. Even with Christina Karamo refusing to step down, and there's just zero humility, zero willingness to put the party above herself, and then stealing. They're thieves. They are absolute thieves. She herself is a thief, and
wow. And
Um,
the simple fact that then when she gave the one laptop back, how many were they supposed to have purchased?
they spent
8?
$100,000 on them.
Yeah.
So,
But then when she gave the one back, she bleached it essentially. I don't
right.
think that most people understand how deliberate that is. Look
Yeah.
up Hillary Clinton because she did it.
But
And
I actually read about that. You have to, in order to make it so that it's not recoverable, you have to delete and write over at a minimum 7 times. So you have to write over it with something else. You have to delete it, write over it with something else, delete that, write over it with something else. You have to do that a minimum of 7 times in order for it to be unrecoverable. So, you really have to hire somebody to do that because they have to know what they're doing. Like, this is not,
absolutely. Right,
um,
right, right. So what exactly was she hiding from the one laptop that she turned in?
mm,
But what did she not want anybody to see? And yeah, she went on for how many months about the Weiser administration not turning over um, anything to her, laptops, phones, donor lists, not turning over anything. And saying that when there would be a smooth transition with her, yeah,
right,
one laptop that's bleached,
right.
and no list for anything. Well, I guess she, in her mind, she never had the list, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, the good news is that more and more people are just recognizing that they are the problem. And the more that the the sane within the party come together and have fun working towards winning an election,
Correct.
the more clear the contrast becomes to everyone. And if Trump wins Michigan, it is 100% in spite of everything that the Christine Karamo people do, and because of everything that Pete Hoekstra and all of the active participants within the party do, like yourself. So
100%. One,
uh,
and we are all working, doing everything that we can possibly do, between get out the vote, with all the Trump 47 stuff. We are all moving in the same direction. We just had a Zoom last night. We kind of brainstorm some stuff and just come up with different ways of all of us working together. That's the goal. Nobody's going to win this on their own. We all have to be working together. Sadly, there are some people that we absolutely cannot work with, and as you pointed out, I mean, they're like a cancer to the party. It's like a cancer in your body. You got to get rid of it. And so a few people had to go, but everybody else wants to work to elect Donald Trump and elect all the down ballot races. It's paramount that we take back the Michigan House, and we just have to keep moving in that direction.
right,
100%.
right. Well, and things are looking really good. I mean, the the polls are looking good. It just feels like there's good momentum,
I
and
agree. I
uh,
haven't felt this way in a while,
um,
in terms of being able to win something. And I believe the polls are, even show where Trump's at. And I see it, we see more investment in our state than we've seen in a very long time, which is encouraging to all of us, because that, no matter what, it takes money to win.
right,
And it takes money to get the messaging out there and to get the right message out there. And so I'm very thankful, for the RNC working with us in the state of Michigan and all the help that they brought here for us.
right, right. And they've got some really good programs. So swampthevoteusa.com. If you haven't seen it, go to
Yep.
swampthevoteusa.com. And there are so many resources there. It's super simple. And you can just plug in exactly the way that you want to plug in and give, whether it's
Exactly.
your time, even just knocking on a few neighbors' doors, registering to vote early. The red wave starts today. Today, it actually started about a month ago, but the red wave is going on right now with our permanent AV registration. So
Correct.
if you
We
have it,
all need to get on that list.
yep. So Super simple. It took me like 45 seconds. So you can all
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about that is not just for elections like the one that we have coming up. It's the beauty is that all of the small little elections, the school millages and things like that, that they don't really advertise because they don't want you to vote. Well, guess what? When you're on the permanent AV list, they have to send you that ballot as well. So that's just a reminder of all of those elections. You know, people, we forget most people aren't actively involved in elections like we are. And so they miss those. And again, they don't advertise them. This way, it comes right to your door. The other thing about an election like the one that we have coming up, when there are so many names on the ballot, when you get your ballot at home, this gives you time to research each and every one of those names so that you know that you're voting for the person who best suits what you're looking for in a candidate. And so you can, I don't advise sending it in the mail. I would definitely take it right to your local township clerk, drop it off. You can quite honestly, in the 9 days of early voting, you can take your absentee ballot and put it through a tabulator yourself. But get it, vote early. I won't say vote often. I don't advocate for that, but you know, if all of the registered Republicans in the state of Michigan just voted, we'd be in pretty good shape.
Yep.
But it's going to start with you and I. It's going to start with us talking to our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, whatever it might be. People that don't typically vote. We need everybody registered this time. And there are a lot of people that are fed up with Joe Biden and fed up with the border crisis. You know, now is the time. Now is the time to make the jump.
And and the early voting is so key, because especially because of all of the psyops that I've been looking at, that Flynn has been and his whole team have been running to discourage Republicans from voting at all. So
agree. So, the notion of your vote not counting, that is so false. And it is absolutely false. That's why the swamp the vote is so important. We need to overwhelm the system like we did in 2016. We can do it again. I feel the momentum. I think you do too. I'm pretty excited to go to the RNC convention next month. I know you are as well. So
it's going to be great. So
it will be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
How can people get in touch with you, or if they have any questions or anything on social media or anything?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on X. I don't know. I can't ever remember that stuff. Kelly Sackett 7 maybe. I don't know. Reach out through the Kalamazoo County GOP as well. There's a section there. So I appreciate that.
If you're anywhere near Kalamazoo, you know, you hold some great events and you do a lot of good work. So
thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us live. And until next time,
take care.